Hi. So I tend to avoid making videos like this for a few reasons. One, I try really hard to stay pretty non-political on the internet. Two, although I try every day to learn and expand my thinking, I know that I'm still probably not the most woke person and I'm probably still really ignorant. In fact, not probably, definitely still very ignorant in a lot of topics. I don't like to speak in topics that I don't feel 100% educated in, and I don't want to offend anybody or spread an opinion that is ill-informed. Three, I don't want people to look at this and think that I'm just hopping on a trend for views. I don't really like when people rehash the same thing that everybody else is saying just for the sake of being current, and I would never want to exploit any of these topics for clicks. However, in this case, I do feel that I have something that I can add to the conversation. I feel that I have things to say that haven't really been said yet, or maybe not in this way, and maybe I can help people see things in a way that they weren't able to see before. Although I am extremely nervous to post this because I don't want to mess it up and I don't want to put my foot in my mouth. I know that I'm welcoming a lot of backlash for posting something so controversial. I was, for some reason, whatever reason, blessed with a huge platform and I can reach a lot of people. And while there was a good chunk of me that knew it would be a lot easier to stay silent on this, I don't think that it's right of me to ignore it and keep posting silly story time videos when I have the power to shed some light on a very important topic. If I say something wrong, if you feel that it's not my place to speak on this, if I offend you in some way, in advance, I am sorry. So here I go. The first thing I want to address, not only because it genuinely hurts me and the public at large, but also seems to be a topic of great disagreement and tension, is the debate between Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter. The argument here is stemming from the fact that a lot of people, mostly white people, are offended by this. Somehow people are taking the movement Black Lives Matter and reading it as Black Lives Matter, white lives don't. Now, I personally don't see anywhere in this hashtag only Black Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter more than other lives, yet somehow people are still becoming really offended and maybe even threatened by it. So if I may, I'd like to explain this trend in the form of a simple logic exercise that we were all taught in grade school. This is called a syllogism. Basically, there is a major premise, a minor premise, and a conclusion. An example would be, Gabby is a human. All humans breathe air. Therefore, Gabby breathes air. This is sound logic. However, if you mix up the premises a little bit, for example, Gabby breathes air. All humans breathe air. Therefore, Gabby is a human. This is not sound logic because Gabby can be a sloth or a toucan. Now let's make this relevant. All lives matter. Black lives are lives. Therefore, Black Lives Matter. Notice that nowhere in this logic does saying that Black Lives Matter discredit the fact that white lives matter as well. All lives matter. Of course they do. This isn't a trade. Nobody's trying to exchange black lives for white lives. But I hate to break it to you, maybe white people don't need a movement. At some point, we need to realize that a lot of these deaths are systemic and biased. Nobody's trying to tell you that white people also haven't been killed by officers, and nobody's trying to tell you that black people haven't also killed white people. But there does need to be awareness raised that if not racism, then at least a very deep-rooted prejudice still runs very deep in this country. If you don't agree with me, I'm willing to bet that there's a pretty solid chance that you're white. And that's not necessarily your fault for being uninformed. I was ignorant for a really, really long time. I grew up in a town that was extremely sheltered from the rest of the world, incredibly racist. And while I never hated black people or other races or identified as a racist, I am able now to look in hindsight at myself and realize that I was raised to believe certain things about certain races, as most of us probably were. But it is really important that if you are not a minority, that you check your white privilege. And this is the most important part of the video and the part that I really hope that you remember. I, not even that long ago, was very offended when people accused me of having white privilege. I grew up very poor. I was the only white kid on my school bus, and every single day I was bullied. I had no connections, no money, no important last name. Nobody ever handed me anything. I worked really, really hard, and I made something of myself. And I felt that none of that had to do with the fact that I was white. I truly believed that my skin color had 0% to do with any of my accomplishments, and that there was absolutely no way that white privilege had any hand in my success. Then one day I found an article entitled "Explaining White Privilege to a Broke White Person," which I will link below and highly encourage everybody to read. Basically, this person had the exact same story as me, only way worse, and the author was recommended the book White Privilege: Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack. And I would like to just read a little excerpt from that. I can turn on the television or open to the front page of the paper and see people of my race widely represented. When I am told about our national heritage or about civilization, I am shown that people my color made it what it is. If a traffic cop pulls me over or if the IRS audits my tax return, I can be sure I haven't been singled out because of my race. I can, if I wish, arrange to be in the company of people of my race most of the time. So then I started Googling more articles and taking quizzes, and I started realizing a lot of things that I've always taken for granted. My parents never had to teach me to not wear a hoodie in public. I have never been worried that I was being followed by a security guard in a store. When I approach somebody in a store or on the street or in a school, I am seen as a wholesome white girl and not a threat. I have never, and probably will never, have the words hooligan or thug used to describe me. People don't fear me for no reason. And I know for a fact that if my boyfriend was shot 4 times point blank in front of my 4-year-old daughter after following an officer's orders, that I would not feel obliged or conditioned to call his shooter sir. The thing that you need to remember is having white privilege doesn't make you a bad person, but denying that it exists is extremely detrimental to societal growth. No one is telling you that having white privilege means you've never struggled or that you are racist or that you've never worked hard for what you have, but it's very important that we take the time now to look inward and reflect and do some research. I'll be linking some articles and quizzes and things down below that really help me understand what I just didn't before, and I really hope that they help you too. My final word is that I am so incredibly sad by everything that's been happening lately, and I pray that we all are. Alton Sterling, Philando Castillo, the Dallas officers, Orlando, Christina Grimmie. It has been a really rough few weeks. I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that it probably starts with us all having a better understanding of each other so that we're not so fearful of one another. So I'm inviting you guys to keep the conversation going. If you're afraid to speak, speak. Let's all have a respectful open dialogue. Tell me how you feel. If I'm wrong on something, please check me. Tell me I'm wrong. I'm always open to learning more, and if there's something that you can teach me, please teach it to me. When you're approaching other people with things that you want to talk about, don't try to prove each other wrong. Let's just try to show each other what's right. I think we're really not hearing each other. Let's not let this topic go away, and let's not wait until the next life is lost before we start trending these hashtags again. Let's keep the conversation going, and stay safe. Everybody, stay safe.